addition to myself from the Hatch Mill, we got Dave Karen and Amy Boyce. Amy is our professional preservationist among the group, so she brings a lot of knowledge with her, and I think some of you know her from Scituate also. So the Hatch Mill is located off Union Street in Marshfield, right across from the end of Pine Street. If you look down when you come to the stop sign there, you can see this sign. This is the mill facing out towards Union Street. Other than the red paint, it's very much the way it looked throughout its working life. The building we're looking at right there was built in 1859, and the low building in the background, the original sawmill, that was built in 1812. This is the rear view. Again, you can see the same buildings. This is what we call tired iron. It's some of the machinery from the mill and other machinery from other grist mills in the area. That grindstone is typical of what would have been in a grist mill, but that stone is not from this property. We are on the National Register of Historic Places. And this gives you an idea of 2 Mile. This is an excerpt from the 1838 John Ford map of Marshfield. We have 4 mills on the, 4 ponds on the 2 Mile Brook, which is also called the Old Mill Brook. The red cross up in the middle, that's our Hatch Mill. Upstream from that was another Hatch's Mill. It was also Oakman's Mill, and then above that was Magoon's Mill. The one that was Oakman's was a grist mill and later a box mill. The Magoon's was always a box mill. And then downstream for the Hatch Mill, the last pond before it goes out into the North River, that was a fulling mill, or in this case they call it satinet. That's another textile. So the 2 Mile is got its name because it's 2 miles long and 1 mile wide, and it was granted to Scituate in 1640 because there was they appealed to the authorities that they needed more pasture land and farmland, so they were granted this land in what was the North Marshfield area. I mean, it wasn't North Marshfield at the time. Marshfield wasn't incorporated until later. So, and this is the original Walter Hatch homestead. Walter Hatch was born in 1625, so he would have been a contemporary of the earliest pilgrim settlers. You know, when you think of Peregrine White was born in 1620, so they were very close in age. Walter was born in England. He didn't come to America until 1635. He came on the ship Hercules. I'm not sure if he came into Plymouth, but within a short time, his family became in Scituate. And then by 1647, he was in the 2 Mile area. There's been a lot of speculation about the true age of this house, but we know Walter was in that area on that land, whether he was in that specific house. Still a matter of speculation. This book, The Red House, came out about 20 years ago at this time. Sarah Messer, her family lives in the Red House. Her mother and sister are still there. It's not quite a novel, but it's a pretty good story about her life growing up in that house. And she brings in the history of the Hatch family and the natural history of the area. It's a pretty good book. it's created a lot of interest in the mill. You know, we get a lot of people making inquiries about the mill after they've read the book. Our best information about the mill comes from a transcript of an interview done with Decker Hatch, who was the last Hatch that owned the mill. He's the gentleman in the middle in the overalls. That's his wife on the right. And that's either the interviewer or a man that used to work for him. We haven't quite determined that, but this was a taped interview. It's about 45 minutes long, and they went all through the mill, and he discussed stories about his family and his recollections about working the mill, and a lot of good information. One of the things that has always been in the historic records is that the original grist mill on that site was built in 1752. And we've always wondered where that exact date came from. And apparently, this is a newspaper from 1940, and there's another one from the 50s where there was an old relic marked 1752. Which we think it was part of the hopper for the grist mill. It was stored upstairs in the mill. That apparently disappeared somewhere between 1960 and 1968 because when the Historic Society acquired the building in 1968, I haven't seen any records of that being in existence. This is a millstone from the mill. This is located at the Messer's property. In Decker's interview, he says that the millstones that he had in his possession when he owned the mill, one of them went to the 2 Mile Schoolhouse, which is located close by on Union Street, and the other ones went to the Sea Rivers Club, which is tract of land. Part of it is in Marshfield, and the other part is in the Scituate Marshfield boundary down between the dunes in Wrexham and Hummerock. I've looked in both places. I haven't been able to locate the stones, but and I've asked around anybody that can remember them. So far, no success. I've also been to the house where the schoolhouse was, and they've got a number of stone walls and granite pieces, but again, no millstone. We'll continue to look. This is the other article that mentions the date of the grist mill and the hopper, and that's Decker sharpening saw blade. We have that saw blade at the mill today. And this is what the sawmill would have looked like back in its working period. This was probably mid to late 50s. The ground contours is very similar to that today. Where you see the round logs, that's where they were lowered in, rolled onto the carriage. They were sawed, and then the cut boards and lumber came out the open doors on the right side here. We've got several other pictures that show trucks backed up to that door, so that would have been a spot for loading cut lumber. Slabs and everything were thrown out the end. That's also open. And then the other L that you can see there, that other roof line, that was a sawdust shed that's gone now, but they had a blower that operated with a saw and blew the sawdust into that shed. Sawdust was sold to farms for animal bedding. Some of you in Marshfield are familiar with the Little Farm. They were some of the best customers. They bought all the sawdust they could get for bedding for their cows. And when we talk about an up and down saw, that's that saw blade that's mounted on that post there. So that's a oscillating motion up and down. So the first saw was in the mill was that saw in 1812, and that was used from 1812 to 1872. In 1872, it was upgraded to a circular saw. We've got very little parts for the sash saw, and very little information about what that looked like. We know generically how they worked. We've actually got a working model of a mill down in Connecticut that one of the people who was very active in the mill years ago, his name was Dave Avery. He also built the model that's on display over there, which shows how the up and down saw work. They call it a sash saw because it's almost like a window sash. It runs up and down within a wooden frame. And this is a little difficult to read, but this was an interesting discovery because it's an industrial census that was done in the 1800s. We have one for 1850, one for 1860, and then another one for 1880. And in 1850, the grist mill and the sawmill was still running side by side. And as far as income, they grossed $1,400 with the sawmill and $1,200 with the grist mill. And that $1,200 was by selling 1,000 bushels of meal. In 1860, the grist mill produced $2,000 worth of material, and the sawmill was down to $1,120. So that was kind of a surprise to us because the information that we had prior to that was that in 1812, when the sawmill was built, the grist mill was shut down. We didn't realize the two ran side by side. And after 1860, as the railroads started to come in, the grist mills rapidly dropped off, in this region. I know you have the Stockbridge Mill in Scituate. Some of you probably know better than I when that stopped being operated. I know other grist mills in Marshfield, they phased out in 1775. 1875. That time frame. And this was the 1860 census. And this is what the mill looked like in about 1968. This is when the Historical Society acquired it. And as you can see, it needed a little work, but it was, the fact that it had been working right up until 1965, I think was pretty unique to this area. I think the people back, even from 1940, when we saw that newspaper article, they realized that they had something pretty unique. And there was a big effort by the town to preserve the mill. And this would have been when the mill was still operating, so this was prior to 65, but it must have been right about that time. You can see the logs there, so they were still going to cut logs. And this is the view from the pond. You can see she's got a little sway in the backbone there. That became worse as the years went on. This is the interior of the mill, and this 1859 portion of the mill, this was built by Samuel Hatch's son-in-law. His name was Israel Oakman, and he was a builder in Marshfield. So probably the original sawmill, the long low part, that was probably built by the operators and by, I think actually, one of Joel Hatch's family helped him build it. And it was built with half logs and hand-hewed timbers. And pretty rudimentary construction, but Israel Oakman was a housewright. He built a few of the other houses along Union Street, and he did some pretty sophisticated timber framing. And what you see here that's light colored. That's part of the restoration effort that was done close to 10 years ago now, about 2016. I think Michael Murray came and talked to this group a couple of months ago about his restoration on the Notre Dame Cathedral. He was actually the one that headed up the construction crew on the restoration of the Hatch Mill. This is the boxboard mill. This is in the larger section, and this is a short log sawmill, and to make thinner, shorter boards. And it's somewhat automated. You can load a log on there and start it, and it will, cut a slab off, return, cut a board, return, and cut through the boards. And then at the end, you stop it, reload, and start again. So box boards were one of the main uses of the mill through the late 1800s. 1859, when they built that building, the intention was to use it as a box factory. They would cut the box boards on the first floor, then take them up to the second floor and build boxes. But apparently the market was good enough for their box boards. They never actually completed the equipment upstairs. They just sold the boards. And upstairs was used pretty much for storage. This is just an ad of the automatic boxboard machine. Explains a little bit of the working. We recently found out that there was a number of companies that made these boxboard machines, but apparently the Carver Cotton Gin Company made this one because we found an invoice for parts that were bought in the 1910s for that saw. This is a sample of the type of box that when they talk about box boards and the box industry, you have a standard box for farm produce. The bottom one is standard railway container. Think about it as an early Amazon box. And then, we've all seen the cranberry boxes. Those were around when everybody had LPs. They were perfect size to keep albums. So in 1872, by that time, the second Samuel Hatch was operating the mill. The owners of the mill, Deacon Joel Hatch, which one of my questions is what church he was deacon of. I don't think, Barry, you have the answer to that? I'm not quite sure, but he was always known as Deacon Joel Hatch. So he built the mill in 1812, the up and down mill, and his son took it over somewhere before 1859. His son Samuel is the one that built the boxboard mill. Samuel's son, Samuel Franklin Hatch, he was a Civil War vet, and he began working in the mill when he returned from the Civil War. And over a 10-year period, he bought the mill from his father. They figured out something with his wages, and after 10 years, he owned it. And he upgraded the mill to a circular saw with a water turbine. Prior to that, it had been the up and down saw with a water wheel. As I said before, we have very little information about the water wheel. At one point, the Historic Society was planning to restore the up and down saw and operate it with a water wheel. And they had acquired plans for a water wheel that would have produced about 11 horsepower. When Samuel put in the turbine, the first turbine, it was rated for 22 horsepower. So it's a pretty good upgrade. An up and down saw, when you think about how it works, it's basically like a hand saw. It's going up and down. It's a slow cut through your piece of wood. A circular saw is like a table saw. So the increase of in speed is significant. So actually, on this circular saw, that nameplate on the bottom, during the years that the mill was undergoing restoration, the saw was in storage in a container off-site. And several years ago, we went to get it to move it back to the mill. And as we were moving it out, got it out in the sunlight, I don't know if it was Dave or somebody else, but spotted the nameplate on it. And we could see that it was SC's Forsyth. And we were able to go online and research a little bit, and we were able to find this woodcut, and that's our mill. That gave us a good picture of it and a good description. We've got some advertisements for it. We've also got patent drawings for it. This is one of the patent drawings. Unfortunately, what you learn about patent drawings is they give you just enough information to get a patent, but they don't want you to learn enough to build your own. And along with the circular saw, they put in this Houston water turbine. The circular saw was built in Manchester, New Hampshire. This water turbine, the builder of it, G.A. Houston, he came from New Hampshire, but it was actually built in Wisconsin, which is unusual. Water turbines, in the late 19th century, they were the latest thing. They were almost like solar panels today. Everybody was trying to buy water turbines and put them in their mills. And it was more of an art than a science. They really didn't have advanced mechanical design at that time, but they came up with some pretty interesting mechanisms. So this was, I've read of 2 other places that have these Houston water turbines. I hope someday to go take a look at them. There's one up in New Hampshire. It's no longer in use. It's a sawmill up there. There's another one out in the Midwest in the grist mill, and I believe that one's still being used. This is the contract for it, and this is where it says that it's 22 horsepower. It also says that it's 12 foot of head, which is the drop from the pond down to the turbine. Now, one of the things that we lack is a good understanding of where the turbine was located within the mill. Down bottom right corner there, you can see the turbine. So that would be down at the bottom of the mill, and that wooden assembly there is called the flume, and that brings the water across from the pond and drops it down into the turbine. The turbine spins, goes up and turns that horizontal gear, and it turns those bevel gears and drives the saw. This is a similar type view, so we can envision that our flume look somewhat like this. Again, in all the, we've got pictures and memories from various people, but this is one part that's missing. We haven't got any good pictures, and nobody quite remembers how it worked. But this is what we do have. So if you can imagine the turbine being at the bottom of that picture, this would be facing downstream. This is where the turbine would exhaust the water, the water would flow out down to the next pond down from Hatch's Pond. These bevel gears that you see here, they would have been driven by this gear here. This is among our accumulation of what they call tired iron outside. These gears, they have wooden teeth because that allows for some misalignment. The gears can wear in, so you're not damaging the iron on. If you have two sets of iron gears, you know, and they're not perfectly aligned, you're gonna get wear. If you have wood, the wood can wear in and it can run smoothly. And from that bevel gear that we just saw, it comes across, and that large pulley on the left would have had a belt on it that would go up to drive the saw, and the other pulley on the right, that would have driven the sawdust blower. So this is in the cellar of the sawmill. And if you can see that pulley on the left, there's a belt on that. It's got a black line through it. That's coming up from down below. So that's driving that arbor, and that arbor is driving the saw blade. In addition to that, it also drives the carriage. You have a gear that's run off of the belts there, and it goes into a rack. On the carriage is the wooden sled type assembly on the right there. If you remember from the sawmill drawing, that's what moves. The log is dogged down onto that, and it runs through the saw blade. This is the control that opens and closes the gates on the turbine. We'll talk about that in a second. This is where, not the sawyer, Decker Hatch was usually the sawyer, him or his son. And they usually had two helpers to operate the mill. And one of the helpers would open it up. There was no governor or any other speed control on the turbine. It was basically, they opened it up till the saw blade came up to speed. And I believe the sawyer could probably tell by sound when the blade was up and running smooth, and then they can go ahead and start the cut. This is an aerial view of the Hatch Pond. This would have been about 1949. The mill is right in the center there. If you can see that building, and if you see beyond that, those are the stacks of lumber. So the mill was pretty productive for a water-powered mill with just 3 employees. They got quite a bit done. And this is probably 1920s. If you see the large amount of small logs, that's probably in the days when they were running the short mill, doing a lot of box bullets. And this is a view of the pond. This was early 60s. This is about from Union Street, Marshfield. You used to be able to look across and see the mill. Now that the pond is grown up with phragmites, it's one of our missions is to try to get that scenic vista back and get the pond cleared so we can use it. This is Decker Hatch. He was quite a character. He was born in 1879. He lived to be almost 100 years old. He began working in the mill in 1900 when he was right around 20, and at that time his father paid him $20 a month. And if he wasn't there, he docked him. We recently found some ledgers at the Marshfield Historic Society. It's been a real treasure trove as far as how the mill operated, the work they did, who they sold the lumber to. Decker He, in addition to operating the mill, he did a lot of farming. He owned a lot of hayfields down in southern part of Marshfield. Where Marshfield Airport is now, he owned a lot of that land down there. And also other hayfields along the South River. And this is the 1880 census. So by that time, there was no longer a grist mill, but this gives some of the operating information about the mill, and it describes the turbine and the drop for the turbine. So that's good information for us too. This is Decker's ad in 1940. He describes its location as in the 2 mile. Some of his major customers during those years, he sold to the West Boxboard Factory in Pembroke. That was a large company. I didn't find anything in the records that we went through recently, but other recollections that he sold a lot of lumber to the Welsh company in Scituate. Other than that, a lot of the old, it was interesting going through the ledgers and see all the old timers in Marshfield that were his customers. Marshfield town historian Cynthia Crucell, she built her house in the 50s, and they cut trees on her property, and Decker cut them up, and they used them for pine flooring in her house. And then Decker's son was a cabinet maker, and he built her a dining room table. This is the second turbine that was in the mill. This is a Bradway turbine that was made in Connecticut. We got the information from Decker's transcript, but they called it a Broadway turbine in that, but they gave the location, Stamford, Connecticut. So we're able to track down that these turbines were built down there, and they're actually Bradway. We're trying to find parts and trying to find other Bradway turbines. They seem to be few and far between. Unfortunately, the factory where they were made, all the records from that were lost. So we do have some information. This turbine was installed at the Hatch Mill in 1944, but we believe it was probably used when it was installed. It's an earlier design, probably the early 1900s. And we've been pretty much through the operation of the mill. So Decker, by 1965, he was 85 years old, and he was ready to retire. Unfortunately, he lost his son. His son had been a cabinet maker and had worked with him at the mill, and probably would have been another generation, but he died in a boating accident in 1960. Decker sold the mill to a fellow named Ray Reed from NOLA in 1965. Also in the records we went through recently, a few of you from Marshfield remember Aldo Salvetti. He was a well-known mason, and he had actually he put a down payment on the mill in 1965. I'm not sure why that didn't go through. Anyway, this Ray Reed from NOLA, he bought it. I'm not sure what his intentions were, but within 3 years, he sold it to the Marshfield Historical Society. So I was a kid back in the 60s, and I was never really involved in things back then, but I do remember the publicity and the work that the Historic Society went into to save the mill and to raise money for the restoration. This was a house tour that they had in North Marshfield. And this was their fun. The goal was 20,000. That goal is come and gone. This again was the house tour in 1968. I don't know what I was doing then, probably up to no good. I wish I had gone. And the fellow on the right with the pipe, I think that's Ray Reed. We have Decker on the left, and to be from the Historical Society. And actually, I believe that woman's name is Pearl Whitaker. She was the president of the Historical Society at that time. And that's Decker. We always thought he was, when we first looked at the picture, we thought he had a cane, but that's actually, that's the operating level for the sawmill. That controls the feed works, that controls the speed of the log going through the mill, through the saw blade. And in the late 60s, early 70s, this is one of the first evolutions as far as saving the mill building. So you see all that light colored wood, that's replacement wood at that time. And when a former president and most active members, actually Sawyer now is Dean Copeland. That's his dad on the right, looks a lot like Dean. And on the left is Jack Braithwaite. He was another longtime supporter of the mill. He was a teacher and guidance counselor in Marshfield. They're working on the spillway, which is a dam portion. And when I was speaking before that we have very little information about the flume, that's because it was pretty well rotted out in the late 60s. And you can see that wood on the left beyond that concrete column, that's probably part of the flume there, but they did. I'm not quite sure what the theory was here with the concrete pipe, but that's all gone now, but it basically obliterated what the original flume was set up like. And unfortunately, Historical Society did their best through the 70s and 80s, but it was a losing battle. You know, we saw that sway in the peak of the roof in 1968. It got a lot worse. The post on the pond side, on the right-hand side here, that had dropped. That was totally rotted out because it was right in the path of the water coming through the flume. That had dropped about 20 inches in those years. So that put pressure on the timber frame, and it dropped, and then they almost lost the whole thing. It was actually pulled back together with a series of cables and jacks, and then they put a temporary tin roof on it. I think temporary became about 10 years. And you can see some of the cables there, and actually you can see the tin roof there too. So this is before the restoration started. The person who headed up the fundraising and the acquisition of mill in those years was a fellow named Roy Kirby from Marshfield. The mill was sold by the Historic Society to the Hatch Mill Restoration Group, and went through a whole new series of fundraising and planning, and that's when all the structural work got done. They really did a fantastic job. The mill would be no more if they hadn't got that done. And this shows the type of work that Michael Murray did. Any of the original pieces were marked with copper tags so they could tell where they came from as they disassembled pieces and did the repairs. This is the mill building. You can see how much of it was taken down in order to make the repairs. And this is the front. So you can see over on the right, that's that post that was one of the major problems. And this is the granite. This was the hash mill is a little unique in that it's not just one dam across a brook. It's a whole series of dams across the whole west and north side. And then, in order to control the level of the pond, you have the spillway here. This is when it was under construction, but as it's completed, you have a set of boards in it, similar to what you have if you're familiar with cranberry ponds. So you can regulate the level of the pond with the level of the boards. So what they do is they could pull the boards when they weren't using the mill and just drop the level of the pond, but then bring it up when they had to bring it up to the level so that they could start sawing. And this is how it looks now with that work complete. So that brings us up to just about the present time. Those of us that are active in the mill now, we're lucky with the structural repairs that have been made. The building's in good shape. What we're concentrating on now is putting the sawmill machinery back together. We're lucky that we have almost all the pieces, but a few of them need repairs. You see that big pulley on the right. We found a bond replacement for that, correct period, very, very similar. So that's been replaced. This is our website. Just go on Google hatchmill.org. There's a lot of information about the mill, a lot of pictures. And our most recent activity as far as fundraising is we were able to acquire a grant from Mass Cultural from $65,000. And we're able to also get a grant from the Bloom Whistle Foundation. You're familiar with David DeGhetto and Noah. He's very generous. And we're able to match the funds for both those grants and achieve our goal of should give us funding to get the sawmill machinery put back together. This is recent work that we've been working on. That's Dean on the left and Dave on the right. What's going on in Dave's picture is we're replacing that old worn timber to the right. We're replacing that with a new one. Cutting holes with an old beam drill we had. And Dean is disassembling some pieces on the husk. Amy's supervising some clown. And we recently brought electricity into the mill. We brought in underground service so that it never had electricity before. We're trying to keep the electricity inobtrusive. Other parts we've had made is we had to replace the arbor for the saw. That's the shaft that the saw blade runs on. We disassembled that. We've had a new one machined. That's some more work, machine work. This is a pinion gear that drives the carriage. On the left, that's what it should look like. On the right is how worn out it was when Decker finished up with it. So we're in the process of having a patent made for that. We've also had some new wheels for the sawmill carriage made. They're made by Frank DeRubis here in Scituate. We've got the patents for the casting over on the table over there, and they were cast at the Perkins Foundry in Bridgewater, which is an old, it's nice to have some of the old parts made, and it's a foundry that's almost at the end of its life. It's been there over 150 years. Some more of the machine work. We also recently re-poured bearings for the arbor. Dean's heating up the Babbitt material there. When the material's heated up, we pour it into the bearing shells and make new bearings. And it's Amy and somebody putting the two bearing halves together. And the other thing we're doing at the mill is we're acquiring vintage woodworking machinery of the period, late 19th century. Because the upstairs never did have the boxboard equipment, it's kind of an open page. So we decided to put some equipment up there. There was another mill in Marshfield, the woodworking mill, where they originally built organs, and later they built cases for musical instruments. That was on Summer Street in Marshfield. It was called Randall Brothers. And that was in existence up through the 1930s. And then when that shut down, the grandson of the original owner, he bought some of the equipment and set it up in a barn on his property. And he operated it with a one-cylinder gasoline engine. His name was Phil Randall. He was working in the area for about 50 years. He was actually, he was a pretty good customer of the Hatch Mill. Another thing we found in looking at the ledgers, he made one of the last purchases from Decker Hatch. In 1965, he bought some of the last mill that was cut, some of the last wood that was cut. That's a workbench from his shop. Also, some of the other machinery from his shop was there. In the background, you see a planer. Also on the left, you see an old table saw that was originally foot-powered. He had converted it over to belt. His apprentice was a fellow named Paul Hansel. I don't know if any of you from Scituate know him, or if you know Squirrel, better known as Squirrel. But he donated, he used all that equipment up through the 90s, and when he finished up with it, he donated it to Hatch Mill. And I think I spoke earlier about the working model of the sash saw. That's it right there, that's at the mill. And unfortunately, this is what our pond looks like. It's filled in with phragmites. That's going to be the next project after we get the saw put together and get that running. We need to come up with a plan to get rid of this phragmites, restore the view of the pond, restore the water source so that the mill can be operated as it was originally. And this is our schedule for this year. That first Saturday, May 24th, that's Memorial Day weekend. After that, it's the last Saturday of the month. Hope to see any of you there that would like to visit. I think that's all I have. Has anybody got any questions or comments? Yes?
This was great, thank you so much. I'm wondering if you know where the grist mill was. I didn't see that here.
Oh, it was right beside where the larger building was. That's where the grist mill was.
Okay.
And the story was it was moved up the lane to one of the neighboring Hatch houses. One of the things I meant to mention is that basically the living that the Hatches seemed to make off the mill, it seemed to be a pretty good middle-class living. Allowed each generation to build their own houses. And around the neighborhood, the first mill owner, Israel Hatch, he lived in the red house we spoke about at the beginning. His son, Joel Hatch, that built the sawmill, he continued to live in that house. But his son, Samuel, built another large colonial-style house right on that same, right beside there. And then his next son, Samuel's son, Samuel, he built a house that's on Union Street, more of a Victorian-style house, and that's still there. And then Decker built his own house in the 1920s. That's on Union Street, right at the corner of Union and Pine. And then Decker's son, Franklin, the one that died, he had a house and shop right there in that same neighborhood too. So they stuck close by, and apparently they made a pretty decent living.
Are there any hatches still in the area?
There's a few Hatches not closely related to this family. Decker's grandsons, I believe, are in Florida. A lot of the descendants keep in touch with the mill. They send questions about genealogy and stuff, so we hear from a lot of them. I'm not sure if there's any actual Hatches still left in Marshfield, but there's a lot of people that are related to them.
I actually do genealogy.
Yeah,
I'm related to the Hatches.
yeah.
Thomas Hatch was my 9th great grandfather. Was Walter's brother.
Walter's brother.
Yeah.
So he was in Scituate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually have been in contact with 2 Hatch descendants. One was in California, one was in Arizona. It was actually through another Hatch ancestor named Sidney Hatch, who used to be a long-distance runner. He ran 5 Boston marathons, and so my family had photographs of him. And so I shared them with the rest of the family, and that's how I kind of got caught up in looking back at the history. So.
Well, it's an interesting genealogy
Yeah.
because they, after about 3 generations, they would remarry. So you have a number of double Hatches, triple Hatches. Some people might call it inbreeding, but I prefer to think of it like when we bred dogs, line breeding.
That's pretty common, actually.
And they had several families that they intermarried with an awful lot of Phillipses. It's like 2 brothers who married 2 sisters from the same family, and then the next generation or 2 they do it again. Gene?
I received an email today from a gentleman by the name of Matthew Hatch from Utah. So I don't know, he didn't say how he was related, or he was just asking about the presentation. And so I don't know if that's somebody that you may have heard from, or...
I don't think we have. Amy keeps up a little better than I do. When we get genealogy questions, I've dug down into it a little bit. I'm certainly no expert, but I enjoy it.
Well, I'll try to find out some more information.
Yeah, have them forwarded to the Hatch Mill.
Yeah. And I do have a question. Have you ever had the grounds of the mill metal detected
Several
and
times.
found any
Several
really
times.
cool things?
Unfortunately, there's just so much metal junk, nails and pieces.
Yeah.
We haven't got lucky so far, but we're happy to have anybody keep trying.
Okay.
John?
Extended family, the Hatches served from Marshfield in the Revolutionary War, only 16 people, remember?
Yeah.
So they played a big role in history at the time.
Yeah, they had a couple big families that had 4 brothers that all served. And then in addition, their wives were married to Revolutionary soldiers also. So within a family, you have 7 or 8 people that
So they were not tourists?
No.
There were a lot of tourists in Marshfield, right?
The only Tory I know that was a hatch is because he married into a Tory family. But beyond that, you're right, there were a lot of Tories in Marshfield, but the hatches were pretty much big. Actually, most of North Marshfield was. It seemed like most of the Tories were South Marshfield or the area, Center Marshfield. It's like the Hummerock area now. There's a lot of Tories there. Sir?
In one of the earlier slides, it shows quite a large belt, which was running some of the machinery. What were the belts made of? Leather or?
Some were leather. I think that the main drive belt for the saw was like a woven fabric at the end there. It probably would have been leather early on. I think actually buffalo hides were one of the sources for belts back in the early industrial times.
How long does the grant process take? For you guys to like acquire,
The Mass Cultural Grant, Dave can help me on this, but I think it was about 6 months from the time we applied until we got it.
Yeah, it was, we got rejected at first, and then they gave us the opportunity to resubmit and do a better job on our application, which we did. And then we got a pretty immediate response to that, like within a couple of weeks. So, but typically it's a pretty quick process. They do like the applications are due in February, and they let you know by April, the end of April, what they've decided. So they're good about it. It's a small office, Mass Cultural. There's a couple of staff who make all the decisions or recommendations, and then their board votes on it. So, and they're very responsive. You can call and ask plenty of questions. They give you great feedback. So they look good to work with.
Yeah, I'd say we really had a great experience with them. Cindy?
I just had a question about the sawmill. You were saying that some of the family built it? Not the 1859 building.
Okay, well, the grist mill, the story is always that Israel Hatch's, I forget what the relationship was, but it was Benjamin Hatch was the name of it, and he was called Miller Ben. He had the next mill upstream on what's now Opens Pond.
I was going to ask about the style of the building, because I have some photos of the same style mill on Parsons Pond in Marshfield, the building. So I'm wondering if, okay, the Hatches was successful with the style, they copied it and used it at different.
Yeah, well, it's the building pretty much, you have the saw, and then you build the building around it. So, okay, I'm sorry. So that's the long old building. So originally it was, each section of the frame is called a bent. The center one, if you look at the model over there, where the sash saw is, where it goes up and down, that's one bent. And then you had the two others. That was the original building because that was an oak frame. And then the two extensions are framed from pine. And they probably were added at the time the circular saw went in because that had a longer carriage. That allowed them to cut lumber to I think 22 feet long.
I'm just asking about the style of it, because the photos I got, I thought it was Hatch Mill, and it turned out it was Parsons. Not Hatch Mill. But it looks, I'll show them to you, so you can see what they look like.
Same building.
Could be. Well, you're saying something.
yeah, you know, the theory was that it was built, you know, by the operators, but it could well have been, you know, you think that the farmers built all their own houses and barns and everything, but actually, I mean, it was joiners was a separate profession, you know, framers. I mean, Amy knows more about it than I do, but, you know, it was a skill, you know, and I think sometimes, you know, a housewright would put up a frame and then the owners would finish it off themselves. So you have all different levels of craftsmanship within one building. Amy?
Just we should recognize Barry and Cindy for their past service and Tom for his tool donations. And then also say that, you know, you don't just, if you want to come see the mill, you don't just need to come to an open house. If you couldn't make an open house, we're always happy to meet you down there, you know, at a pre-scheduled time and show you around.
Yeah, shoot us an email and we'll be happy to open up anytime. Yeah, and Cindy Castro is Marshfield Historical Society, also a former board member of the Hatch Mill, as is Barry Conwell. And Tom Whalen is very active in the mill during the community preservation, restoration with Michael Barry. And again, it's Barry.
Yeah, one thing, I'm not sure that I heard you say this, is the primary restoration work was funded by a Community Preservation Act grant from the town of Marshfield in the order of $284,000. That was a big help in 2013, 14. That's what funded the primary restoration work back at that point.
Well, I don't see any more hands, so thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoyed it.